Hello and welcome to part 2 of the series that I'm calling To Shell and Back Again, which is a series of tutorial videos meant to instruct on how to use the tool Shell, which is a player-written hacking tool for the game Greyhack, which was created by the user Pluto. In this video we're going to talk about how to obtain and configure a rental server for use as an Rshell server for use with Shell. There's many reasons why you might want a rental server, from having proxies or hosting websites or saving libraries or whatever between restarts, or any number of reasons. But in this video we're just going to be talking about setting up an Rshell server. So alright, let's get started. If you've watched the previous videos, by the way, we've talked about compiling Shell from source using the Pluto's GitHub, and compiling Shell in the game using the code editor. The most recent video was talking about how to complete the tutorial mission. This video picks up right where that one left off. So you can see here in my email client, we've got the email from the tutorial. It's got the response from completing that mission, and it's given us an IP address for a hack shop, which is one of the first things we're going to need. But before we get to the point where we even have use for that, we need to purchase our rental. So to do that, we open up a browser, and in this search utility, we're going to type in provider. I think there's other keywords you can use, like I think ISP works, or internet or something, I don't know, but provider always works for me. And we want one of these, we see the same description everywhere. We want one of those, and I'm just going to pop over to one of these random ones, not on the front page, just in case somebody's checking logs. And we're going to purchase a rental server. So we have all these speeds. I don't know how much these matter. Somebody once told me that the only ones that actually make any kind of difference are the first two, and after that it doesn't matter. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I usually go with 6 megabits per second, as it's relatively inexpensive. So whatever. So I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to do rent server, and that is all we need. So I already have it, but you should take this opportunity to download the config.lan program. You use it to configure the network that your rental server is in. You can purchase more devices. You can change service levels. One of the great things about config.lan that people don't often think about as one of its main uses is you can use it to check your bank balance. Which means you don't need to go to a bank website anymore once you've created your bank account. Yeah, if you don't already have it, you should get it. But I already have it, so we don't need it. So we're done with the browser. So I got this email. It's given me info for my rental server. Obviously the password's here in clear text, but that's fine. I'll just delete the server when we're done, and you can't see the IP anyway, so it probably doesn't matter. Now you'll notice this little icon up here on the top left. If you click that icon, it will add this server info to the map, so you can access it using the map executable, which is this. I don't use it. The save map like computers that you save in the map are saved in a text file, and they're saved in plain text, so it's a bit of a security risk. So I don't use it. But if you do use it, saving this information and using it can be as easy as just clicking that save button. What I am going to do, however, is I'm going to go ahead and compile Shell real quick using this IP address and these credentials as the home server, which we talked about briefly in part 0. But real quick, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about there. Oops, that was too slow. There we go. We have our source directory that has our our shell. In my head, I always think of it as 5hell, even though it's pronounced shell. So if I say that during the video, I apologize. It's pronounced shell, but I think of it as 5hell. But in any case, in part 0, we talked about this line right here, which is this globals.home server. In order for Shell to pass the contents of tbuff, the transmission buffer, to a server, we would configure that here in this home server. And so I like to use the same server for that, for when I'm running a hashim daemon, as I do for Rshell, and then oftentimes I'll launch my attacks from that server as well, use it as a proxy, so it's kind of an all-in-one server to be my home away from home, I guess, so I'm not doing all this stuff from my main home computer, which is a good idea in general. It's not, it's not as big a risk for me because I don't know if you've noticed, but every so often, like right there, my Wi-Fi network will change. So I've got a script running in the background that kind of cycles me randomly through Wi-Fi networks. So it's not as big a deal if somebody gets my home IP address because it's never my home IP address for long. But in any case, it's still pretty good practice to use proxies when you're doing stuff. So that's what this is for. So if you wanted to take your rental information and use it for the transmission buffer, you would take the IP and the username and the password and you would put them in this line here and then compile shell with that information hard-coded. I'm going to do that, but I'm using Graybell to compile it out of game because I don't want you to see my IP address and password and all that. And I also use it for connecting, as a rental. So I'm going to do it real quick out of game, but it should take just a moment here because I've got it set up to go pretty quickly. And I'm also going to compile my rental. I have kind of a shortcut to get into my rental server, which it's a binary called rental that just jumps me into a terminal. So that's compiled. Now I'm going to compile shell using that address as well, hard-coded. If you see this stuff popping up on my screen, this is I'm using Visual Studio Code to compile these using the Graybell VS extension. I will probably at some point make a video on how to install and configure that. I love it. It allows me to keep all of my source code outside of the game, so if somebody ever does get into my computer, they won't have the source code for my own tools, such as Hex, which you'll see here in this other window. But in any case, so we've got shell compiled now. If I launch it, this is now the new one, which is good. And in part 0, we got shell set up, ready to go with the rootkit and the tables and all that. We're not going to do that on the rental server. I'm just going to copy them over using the file explorer. So, alright, let's get started. So, I have the rental server. I'm going to run my rental binary, which will put me into the rental server. A couple of things we got to do first. Let's copy shell over. So I open File Explorer on the rental, come over here to the bin directory. I'm going to open it on my local computer as well. Come over here to the bin directory, find shell. I'm just going to copy and paste it in there using the File Explorer. And then I'm going to grab that rkit folder. So that's going to be in root on my computer. So we'll just copy that rkit folder. It's done. I'm also going to grab this tables folder. This has the output from pwgen that shell creates. And that takes a long time to generate, so I'm just going to copy it over instead of redoing it. So that's good. We've got shell. I think that's all we need for the moment. So now on the rental, I can run shell. One of the first things you want to do anytime you get a rental is secure it. Shell has a what's called a just lock, I think is shortcut. Yeah, so lock will rewrite file system permissions. I think it deletes the password file and mail and bank files if they exist, and I think it also deletes the guest network, or the guest, not guest network, I'm sorry, guest folder. So let's look at tree and just make sure it has done so. Alright, it didn't delete the guest directory, so I was mistaken about that. But it looks like it has corrected all the file system permissions. Everything is 000 across the board. No read, write, or execute permissions for anybody. If you're root, which we are and always should be, then permissions don't matter because root has access to everything. But so we still need to delete the guest directory, and we need to let's see, is that it? No, we still have the password file as well. So let's delete those things. On a normal Linux machine, you can't just delete the password file, but in Greyhack it doesn't matter. So we will want to delete /etc/password. We're also going to want to delete the guest directory. Alright, let's see. Is there anything else we want to get rid of to secure this? Alright, we no longer have... wait, do we still have password, or did I just scroll too far? Oh, I scrolled too far. Okay. So we don't have the password file anymore. That's good. We have some extra libraries that we don't need. I'm going to go ahead and delete the kernel module.so since that one is not required for the computer to run. Apt client does not need to be in /lib if you have a tool that can make use of it just in the same directory it's located in. So I may move that out as well. I think I will. libssh unfortunately does need to be here if we want to maintain SSH access to the server. It's got to be inside /lib if you're going to run the service. But we don't need kernel module so, and apt client we do need, but it can be somewhere else. It doesn't have to be in the /lib directory. And that's important, by the way, because in order to exploit these libraries, they have to be inside this /lib directory. If they're anywhere else, they can't be exploited locally. And for the record, also, what we're doing right now is far from all that's necessary to secure a system. You would also want to ensure that whatever libraries you do have, that you're running secure versions of them. And by secure, I mean it's impossible to have a library that has no exploits. But if you can get a library that has only exploits that, with requirements that can't be satisfied, or only exploits that grant, very limited access, like a guest file, for example, or, something like that, then that's, the best possible case. So that's, you want to do that. Also, you would want to go through this same process on the router as well. So you would, by default, they don't give you access to the router. It's not running SSH, on the router itself. So you'd have to hack into your own router and, lock down the file system like I've done here. Delete the guest folder, delete the password file, delete everything that shouldn't be there and doesn't need to be there, and then secure the libraries there as well. So, I'm not going to go through all of that on this video. This is just some basic stuff. And then keep in mind that if you delete something in the file system, it puts it in the trash folder. It's not actually gone, so make sure you also delete it from there. So, okay, so moving along, let me just see /lib/kernel module.so. We don't need that, and I'm going to move /lib/apt-client.so to /root, because that's a good place for it. And let's run tree again, just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. On your home system, by the way, it's very important that you do not remove permissions to the terminal.exe. You must still be able to run that as a non-root user, and sudo as well, which is the sudo binary file in /bin. Those two things, if you don't leave yourself access to those, you'll lock yourself out of your own computer, and you'll need somebody to hack you for you to fix the permissions, or you'll have to like restart. There's no fixing that if you do that. It is sufficient to remove access except for read and execute to the others group. And I'm not going to go into super great detail on the permission system. But the only access you need to leave for those is just, O plus RX should be sufficient. And shell is, when you use lock, which is a shorthand command on the shell, tool, it's smart enough to recognize if you're on your home computer or not, and it won't wreck those permissions for you unless you specifically override it and tell it to. So you don't really have to think too much about this. Just use lock whenever, and it knows what the right thing to do is. So, all right. So we've cleared out the libraries we don't need from the lib folder. We've locked down permissions in the file system. Now, in some exploring, I discovered that you actually don't need a hack shop in your apt-get repository list in order to download the lib_rshell.so library, which is necessary to run the Rshell server, which was a surprise to me. I thought that's where you got that from, was the hack shop. But it seemed like it worked even if I didn't have one. So actually, I would like to try that again just to see if that wasn't just like a fluke or something. So let me pop over onto the rental in this other terminal. Yeah, totally works. Oh, well, no, it didn't. Let's see. I need to do apt-get update first. Which, I don't know why, since there is no server in the repository. Maybe the official servers or whatever is not included in that file. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you do get it from a hack shop. That's what I thought. I don't know why it looked like it worked before. But in any case, we have a hack shop IP address. That's what we got from our mission. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And then we're going to do apt-get add repo. And we'll paste that address, which is how you add a repository to. It's actually in. So if we look at it, it's in /etc/apt/sources.txt. It shows up in the source list here. And as I mentioned on the previous video, we don't have to use the one that we got in this email. We don't have to complete the tutorial at all. There's many other ways to find a hack shop IP address. But the kind of the path you're meant to take as a new player is to complete the tutorial and then get access to this. And you don't actually have to use apt-get either. You can browse this IP address in the browser executable, and you can download all this stuff from the shop using the browser. But I like to do it through apt-get because, number one, it's free if you do it that way. And number two, it's, doing it through the browser is just kind of tedious. You got to open up an executable and click a bunch of things and copy and paste, and it's a lot of clicking. Much easier to just add it to the sources and do it that way. So we added the repo to the sources. Now we have to run apt-get with update to refresh the list, which is that apt-cache.bin file. That's odd. It didn't like our hack shop address. It said port 1542 not found. I've never seen that from a tutorial mission hack shop. But it's right. That port is not running on this. Oh, that's my rental. Whoops. That was okay. Sorry, that was dumb. The IP address I copied is the IP address from the rental, not the one from the mission, which I don't have any use for this email anymore, so I'm going to just delete it so I don't confuse myself that way again. All right, let's remove that. repository since it's not a repository. Sorry about that. Okay, that one's done. Now we'll copy the actual Hackshop IP address from the actual tutorial mission. apt-get add repo. We'll paste the address and then apt-get update. There we go. That's what we wanted. So that updated the apt-cache.bin, which is the cached list of what's available from the repository servers. Now I can do apt-get install lib_rshell.so. And there we go. That's the library file that's needed to run the Rshell server. Now, I believe, let's see, is it started? I think we need to, well, first of all, let's see where it put it. It should put it in /lib by default, which unfortunately we have to leave it in /lib because if we're going to do an Rshell server, it's got to be in the /lib folder, which is fine. You'll notice the permissions on it are not locked down, so let's run lock again to fix that. And then we actually could have used shell to install it, by the way. So shell has aptm, I believe, is the command for working with apt-get. So we could have done it that way. We have add repo, del repo, all that same stuff install. But what I want is not in here, actually. I can't do that with aptm, I guess. Do we have, let's see, RSI? Oh, we need meta exploit. Alright, let's get meta exploit as well. So meta exploit we actually don't need to have in /lib. So this is a great time. Okay, I'll do it with shell to show the aptm command. So we enter the apt-get interface using aptm is the name of the command. I'm going to choose for install. We're going to install metaexploit.so. And it's asking us for a path, which is great. So I'm going to install it to the root directory. We're also going to want crypto.so, so let me get that as well, for crypto.so, and we're going to put this in the root directory. So we'll quit out of that, do tree again. We should have our libraries now in the /root directory. Unless I scrolled too far up, which is very possible. No, they're right here at the bottom. So /root /metaexploit.so and /root /crypto.so. Those are our two new libraries. Again, we're going to type lock. Alright, so let's try RSI now. That's odd. We are in the current folder. Are we not? Should work. Maybe I need to quit out of it and start it again. Definitely on the rental. Let's see. It may have cached the metaexploit reference, so let's try RSI now. Okay, so the service is not running. So does Shell have a built-in way for us to start it? I feel like there must be. I mean, everything else in the world is in here, so let's see if there's a built-in way for us to start the service. There's run, but I think run does something else. I think run just executes a separate binary in line. It's not for starting a service. And I don't actually know if there's a built-in way to start the service from within Shell. And there's about 8 million commands in here, so it's taken just a second to read through them all, but let's see. And sometimes I forget what they do, too, if I don't use them very often. But I'm not seeing a way to do it. Maybe SL? What is SL? Oh, no, Symlink. That's a new thing since the merge. Yeah, I don't see it. There probably is a way. There's a way to do like everything in Shell. But I'm not seeing it. So let's just make it easy on ourselves. First of all, I'm going to, oh, I don't need to move anything because we already installed meta-exploit to the right thing. But let's go ahead and install the Rshell server, which we will use to start the Rshell server actually running. We don't need to keep this binary. Yeah, okay. So, and then in order to run it, we need to set up port forwarding. So let's go ahead and do that. I will navigate to the router address on port 8080, which should just be, let's see. Okay, yeah, 192.168.0.1. I think it's always the same on a rental. I don't think it's... I'm just kind of going by faith here since I can't see it. All right, that works. So what we want to do is we want to add a port forwarding entry. So we're already on the port forwarding screen. We're going to click Add Entry. The default port for Rshell is 1222. And we're going to route that to our own rental computer here, which is 192.168.0.2. I like to use a non-standard port because I feel like people are probably always scanning around for open ports 1222. So I like to use just a non-standard port. So we'll save that. And that's all we need to do here. So we can close that. If I go up here and run this again, this Rshell server should work now. No? Do we need to restart or something? Swear I just did that. Yeah, it's saved. Well, let's try the Rshell interface. Oh, I haven't installed it. Okay. So there's two binaries that you can install that interact with the Rshell service. So there's one that's Rshell-server, which I believe it should be there to interact with the service for like starting and stopping the Rshell server. And then there's Rshell interface, Rshell_interface, which is used for working with Rshell clients that you've set up. So you don't actually have to have either one of those binaries because you can interact with those in code. The only thing you really need is librshell.so, which we got. But I don't know how to confirm that the server is actually running. Okay, so Rshell interface didn't seem to have a problem, so I guess it's running. There's nothing in PS to indicate that it's running. Let's look at the source code for the Rshell server. By the way, you can get source code for any of the built-in binaries by doing codeeditor.exe-code and then the name of the binary. Even stuff that's not part of the computer by default that you would get from a shop. So like Rshell server is what I want to look at right now. It'll open up code editor window with the source code for that built in. So oh, okay. So yeah, I guess it was running the whole time. We're supposed to get that message, whether it's running or not. So because if you look at this, so we're including the library here. It's looking for it in /lib. That's not why it needs to be in /lib. That's just where it looks for it by default. And then we're launching. So if you don't already have librshell installed, it'll grab it from apt-get. And then if we don't have the library, it says it can't find the library, and then It's installing the service. So this is what I think we hadn't already done. We hadn't run anything which would install the service. And then if it failed to install the service, it'll exit with whatever the error message is, and then it just sends that message every time, regardless of whether it worked or not. So, okay, so that's fine. So we've got the Rshell service up and running. Let me look at where those files were because I don't want them. I want to get rid of them. So, oh, we have a new text file. What is in rsheld.conf? server/conf/rsheld.conf. What does it have in there? Nothing. Okay, it's an empty file. Alright, but where did those servers get installed to? Because I want to delete those binaries. Okay, they're in /bin. So rm/bin/rshell server and rm/bin/rshell interface. Okay. And we'll do lock again to resecure all the files in the file system. Okay, so our Rshell service should be running. And then in shell, if I type RSI, which is the Rshell interface, it says there are no Rshells, which is great. It's listening for upcoming connections. So server's configured for Rshell. Now, the other thing I want to make sure I have set up is in shell, you can run hashim, which is it's a daemon that will monitor a file, which is by default it's /root/pass, and any encrypted passwords or whatever that are put into that file, it will decrypt them by default and print them to the screen, and also save them to a text file called dump.txt. So I just want to make sure that is set up. I think, okay, so we do need to run it with a file. So /d is what we want. Default path is /root/pass. So all we need to do is, alright, hashim-d. Let's see if it works. I may have to create the file. Yeah, I do. Okay, so we'll do touch /root/pass. That's all we need. Oh, right. Touch is the built-in binary. In shell, we want poke. So poke /root/pass will create that file for us. And now, if I do hashim-d, there we go. It's listening. So there's no way to exit this when it's in daemon mode, so we just have to Control-C. But we are ready to go. So we now have shell compiled and set up to use this server as the home server. We've got the rental server purchased, and we've got the RSI service installed and configured and running. We've got the port forwarded properly. We've got hashim set up, the files there. So we should be able to use our rental server now as our launching point, as a proxy, as our hashim, little service that's running all the time for transmission buffer, and as an Rshell server. So we're looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. In between this video and the next video, I'm going to upgrade the hardware on the rental server because scanning is very, very, very slow on default hardware. So we want much better hardware. So I'm going to do that, outside of the video. Although it is worth noting that because of those rainbow tables that I mentioned before that we generated with PWGen, deciphering passwords actually doesn't use the hardware because it's not, unless we have to do like a player password or the password's not found in our rainbow tables, we don't actually have to use the crypto library, /decipher to decipher passwords, which is really neat because, since we don't use the crypto library, then it will go fast no matter what hardware we're doing it on. So I always thought that was pretty cool. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.